An understanding of the relationship between personal space and meltdowns can help you to successfully de-escalate or even prevent a meltdown. Hi, I'm Mike Woods. I have a master's degree in conflict management, and in this video I want to help you to understand the relationship between personal space and meltdown so that you can more successfully prevent or minimize your child's meltdown. The definition of personal space is that physical area around a person that they consider to be psychologically theirs. Everyone has their own personal space, and you know what it feels like to have someone intrude upon your personal space. It starts to make you feel a little bit more anxious, maybe a little bit more stressed. Well, the same happens in meltdown situations. We basically have several different areas of personal space. From 0 to 18 inches is what's considered intimate space, and that's the space where we feel comfortable with those that we have a very intimate relationship with. Typically family members, significant others. It's the space in which hugging and kissing and whispering and things like that occur. And the personal space that extends beyond that, the average personal space is 1.5 feet to 3 feet away from you. And that's the area of personal space that's reserved for most anyone else that you feel comfortable with. There's actually multiple factors that influence personal space, especially in a meltdown cycle, and one of those is a person's emotional state. The more agitated or frustrated or anxious or stressed someone is, the less inclined they are to want to have people physically close to them. You know this. Well, it's not any different when a child is having a meltdown. A second factor that affects personal space is relationships. The better that we know someone, the more that we're comfortable with them being in our personal space, and the less that we know someone, the further away that we tend to want them. Well, oftentimes what happens in a meltdown cycle is because of that relationships, parents oftentimes feel comfortable entering into their child's personal space in that meltdown cycle when they're not actually recognizing that the emotional state of their child is actually one that produces a desire to have people further away. And by stepping into someone's personal space when they're agitated, even if there's a good relationship there, you can actually cause that meltdown to escalate. Another factor that influences personal space is size. Typically, the bigger that someone is relative to you, the less comfortable you feel with that person being in your personal space, especially if you don't know them that well. And the smaller that a person is relative to you, the higher level of comfortableness that we have even when that person's physically close to us. In a classroom situation, either in a school setting or a special needs ministry classroom, one of the problems that I notice is that the volunteers tend to get close to a child who's in a meltdown cycle, and they feel comfortable doing so because their physical size is larger than the child's. But what they're not taking into consideration is that because of that physical size, that tends to make the child more anxious and more stressful, thus escalating the meltdown cycle. There are several other factors that relate to personal space in the meltdown cycle. Do yourself a favor. Click on the link that you see on the screen to go to a video that contains a much more detailed explanation of what these are and other important factors in the meltdown cycle. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the section below, and while you're at it, subscribe to our YouTube channel.